My name is Eleanor. I am 35 years old, and I am the founder of a premier structural engineering and architectural design firm. I purchased an ultra-luxury private safari experience in Kenya for my entire family to celebrate my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. But as I stood at the first-class departure terminal at JFK Airport with my custom luggage, my mother sent a text message saying I was uninvited because my father felt the trip should only be for married couples and intimate family. They actually gave my $50 ticket to my brother-in-law's wealthy mother instead. What my parents did not realize was that the exact corporate credit card they were currently using to buy bespoke designer travel gear in the terminal was controlled entirely by my firm, and I was about to hit them with a structural collapse they would never recover from. Before I tell you how I systematically demolished my family's entitled little world, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever had to use your own resources to teach toxic relatives a permanent lesson about respect. Trust me, the payoff to this story is something you will definitely want to hear. The chaotic noise of the International First Class Lounge faded into absolute silence as I stared at the bright screen of my phone. I was standing by the Artisan tea station, my leather weekender bag resting against my leg, holding a boarding pass for a flight to Nairobi that I had funded entirely out of my own business accounts. I had orchestrated this entire 3-week African expedition, complete with private helicopter transfers and luxury tented camps, just to give my parents the anniversary of their dreams. By society standards, I am a self-made multimillionaire. By my family standards, I have always been nothing more than an invisible foundation holding up their lavish lifestyles. Growing up, I was the quiet student who spent her nights studying load-bearing physics, while my younger sister Chloe was paraded around as the beautiful socialite of the house. Chloe, who is now 32 years old, calls herself a holistic wellness guru. In reality, she has been unemployed for 7 years, living entirely off the massive monthly allowance I foolishly provided to my parents, which they quietly funneled directly to her to fund her crystal healing retreats. 3 years ago, she married Marcus. He is a smooth-talking man with a closet full of velvet loafers and a relentless habit of pitching me decentralized finance investment opportunities that always sounded exactly like digital Ponzi schemes. They were a match made in heaven. Two people completely allergic to honest labor, perfectly content to siphon off my engineering success while offering nothing but condescending remarks in return. I looked down at the text message from my mother, Helen, reading it for the 3rd time just to make sure my eyes were working correctly. "You are not coming," she wrote. "Marcus and Chloe need the extra space in the Master Lodge to meditate and relax. Besides, Marcus's mother Vivian is coming now instead, so she can bond with the family. I already had the concierge transfer your ticket to her name. Consider it a generous gift to your sister's marriage. Go back to your blueprints. We will bring you a wooden carving from Kenya." I did not cry. I did not feel a lump in my throat. When you engineer skyscrapers, you learn to suppress emotion and analyze structural failures immediately. This was not just disrespect. It was a calculated hijacking of my assets. Being told I was not intimate family by the very people whose entire existence I financed was a special kind of cruelty. Before I could even process the sheer audacity of replacing me with Vivian on a safari I funded, a push notification dropped down from the top of my phone screen. It was an automated alert from the Chase Sapphire corporate application. Faux alerte. Charge of $14. $200 at a luxury travel outfitter at JFK Airport. Card ending in 7104. Authorized user Helen. Another notification immediately followed it. Charge approved. Lu Meiyuan. $400 at the airline desk for a premium champagne and caviar in-flight package. They were not just stealing my African safari, they were looting my corporate accounts on the way to the boarding bridge. I tapped the phone icon and called my father. Arthur. He picked up on the third ring, the loud background noise of the terminal buzzing heavily behind him. Eleanor. Do not make a scene. Arthur snapped before I could even speak. His voice carried that familiar dismissive tone he used whenever I dared to ask for basic gratitude. Your mother texted you. You always have your face buried in structural models anyway. You would not even enjoy the African heat. It is better this way. So just go back to your office and let us enjoy our anniversary. Dad. I said, my voice dangerously calm. Dipping into the cold. Rational register I used when negotiating massive construction contracts. Mom just put over $20. 000 on my corporate card. You gave my private safari ticket to Vivian. What exactly is going on here? Consider it compensation for putting up with your cold personality. Arthur scoffed, his arrogance radiating through the speaker. Marcus needed some high-end safari gear for the evening dinners at the camp. He is the visionary of the family now. He needs to look the part for his social media followers. And we bought Vivian the caviar package because she is accustomed to high society. It is called being a gracious host. Eleanor, try to learn some etiquette. In the background, I could hear Marcus laughing loudly. Tell the architect thanks for the binoculars. Marcus yelled. Chloe chimed in next, whining directly into the receiver. Do not be toxic. Eleanor, stop ruining my spiritual journey with your negative energy. I stood by the airport T station, analyzing my next move very carefully. I slowly opened my sleek titanium laptop and cracked my knuckles. It was finally time to initiate a controlled demolition of their lives. When you design security features for commercial high-rises, you learn very quickly that the most devastating damage rarely comes from an external earthquake. The most catastrophic collapses always come from internal rot. They come from trusted structural elements that fail because no one is inspecting them. My family thought I was just a walking ATM who was too busy looking at blueprints to ever notice the specific details of my own financial ecosystem. They were about to learn the hard way that analyzing complex systems is exactly how I built my empire. I settled into a quiet corner desk in the first-class lounge. Ignoring the wealthy travelers around me, I connected my laptop to my encrypted mobile hotspot, bypassing the public airport network entirely to ensure absolute data security. My fingers moved across the keyboard with lethal precision. I logged directly into my Chase corporate banking portal. The secure dashboard loaded instantly, displaying my primary operating account and the 2 authorized user cards I had issued years ago. One card belonged to Helen. The other card belonged to Arthur. I had set soft limits on those cards, trusting my parents to use them for groceries, medical bills, and essential home maintenance. That blind trust was a catastrophic engineering flaw on my part. I navigated to the Forensic Transaction History tab. I did not just look at the current month. I pulled the data for the last 8 months and exported the entire ledger into a massive analytical spreadsheet. My eyes scanned the rows and columns of data, my mind shifting completely out of the role of a discarded daughter and entirely into the mindset of a forensic auditor hunting down a massive discrepancy. The numbers staring back at me were absolutely staggering. I started filtering the data by category, and the sheer scale of their entitlement made my jaw lock tight. 3 months ago, there was a charge for $6, $500 at an exclusive wellness retreat in Sedona. I pulled up the itemized receipt. It included aura cleansing sessions, crystal therapy, and private yoga instruction. Chloe's lavish spiritual awakenings were not provided by our parents out of the goodness of their hearts. They were funded entirely by my firm's operating account. While my mother took all the credit for being a supportive parent, I scrolled further down the spreadsheet. Last month, there was a charge for $4, $800 at a high-end automotive customization shop. Marcus drives a leased luxury SUV that he can barely afford the insurance on. My parents drive a reliable hybrid that I bought for them in cash 4 years ago. The customization bill was clearly for Marcus's vehicle, paid for by Helen, using my emergency credit card to fund her precious son-in-law's ego. Then I hit the absolute mother load. 4 weeks ago, there was an $11,000 charge at a digital currency exchange known specifically for funneling untraceable funds into offshore crypto gambling platforms. I stopped scrolling completely. I highlighted that massive charge. Then I wrote a quick sorting script to filter the entire spreadsheet for any transactions matching that specific crypto exchange over the last year. The screen populated with dozens of rows. $800 here. 1美元. 500 there. 3美元. 000 transferred late on a random Saturday night. I tallied the column. Over the span of 12 months. Exactly $42. 600 had been funneled through my mother's authorized user card directly into this unregulated crypto portal. My mother did not even know how to connect her phone to the Bluetooth in her car. My father thought Bitcoin was a type of arcade token, but Marcus constantly bragged about high-yield decentralized investments and taking bold risks in the crypto market. Marcus was a severe gambling addict hiding behind the title of crypto investor. And my parents were letting him use my credit line to fund his habit, just to keep their precious golden child Chloe happy in her fake glamorous marriage. They were actively aiding and abetting the theft of corporate funds to maintain the illusion of wealth for a man who refused to earn an honest dollar. I felt a cold, cynical smile touch the corners of my mouth. The audacity was almost magnificent in its cruelty. They were using my resources to fund Marcus's illegal offshore gambling addiction, buying designer gear at the airport, and then tossing me aside like disposable scaffolding because I did not fit their aesthetic for a luxury safari. They genuinely believed I was just a naive, socially awkward engineer who would just pay the invoice and stay quiet. They had absolutely no idea the level of digital surveillance I maintained over my own physical assets. I leaned back in the ergonomic chair, letting the harsh reality of the situation wash over me. This was no longer just about a stolen safari ticket or a display of blatant parental favoritism. This was felony-level corporate wire fraud. My parents were complicit in draining tens of thousands of dollars from my business accounts to support my brother-in-law. The family dynamic was not just toxic. It was a criminal syndicate operating under the guise of familial love. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was another text message. This time from Chloe. She sent a selfie of herself, Marcus, Vivian, and my parents drinking expensive champagne in the international departure terminal. The caption read, "Sending good vibes to New York. Thanks for understanding that this healing journey is just for the inner circle." I stared at the photo. Marcus was wearing the brand new designer safari jacket. My mother was holding a bespoke leather tote that I now knew was purchased with my money. They looked so incredibly smug, so completely victorious in their little scheme to push me out of the picture. I did not reply to the message. Engaging with them emotionally was exactly what they wanted. I refused to play their game. I was going to rewrite the rules entirely. I turned my attention back to the laptop screen. The forensic audit of the corporate card was complete. The financial breach had been identified, quantified, and meticulously documented. I saved the spreadsheet to an encrypted vault on my hard drive. This was the exact evidence I would need when the time came to drop the concrete slab on all of them. But the credit card fraud was only the structural framework of this investigation. If they were bold enough to steal $42,000 for crypto gambling and luxury goods, what else were they doing behind my back? My mind immediately went to the single largest physical asset I had entrusted to their care, the Hamptons estate. 3 years ago, I had purchased a stunning modern architectural masterpiece in an exclusive Hamptons enclave for $2.2 million. I paid entirely in cash following a massive commercial contract buyout. I let my parents live there completely free of charge because Arthur constantly complained that his retirement fund was not enough to maintain their status in their old neighborhood. I paid their property taxes. I paid the exorbitant landscaping fees. I gave them a private slice of paradise. I needed to see exactly what was happening at that property while I was busy running my firm in Manhattan. I opened a new browser window and prepared to access the enterprise-grade smart home security systems I had installed on the estate. The rabbit hole was about to get much deeper, and I was absolutely ready to inspect every single cracked foundation they thought they had hidden. When I purchased that multi-million-dollar property in the pristine Hamptons enclave 3 years ago, my corporate tax attorney strongly advised against putting residential luxury real estate into my personal name to shield my primary business assets from liability. I formed a specific holding company named Apex Structural LLC. I am the sole managing member and legal agent of that entity. Legally speaking, my own parents were never the homeowners. They were effectively month-to-month occupants residing in a corporate-owned asset. They paid no rent, no taxes, and no maintenance fees. To secure that massive investment, I had installed a comprehensive network of high-definition perimeter cameras and biometric access points around the estate. I originally told my parents the system was there strictly for insurance purposes due to the property value. I had muted all the push notifications on my end, meaning I never actively watched the live feeds. I simply let the cameras record to my secure cloud servers. Opening the security dashboard now, I bypassed the live feed and pulled up the archived footage from the past 45 days. I set the playback speed to quadruple time and watched the digital timestamps fly across the screen. Within 5 minutes of reviewing the accelerated footage, the illicit operation became undeniably obvious. My parents were not living a quiet coastal retirement. Every weekend, fleets of luxury sports cars and blacked-out Sprinter vans were pulling up to my modern estate. Large groups of loud, flashy individuals were carrying DJ equipment and massive coolers directly to the infinity pool area. On the Monday mornings following these chaotic arrivals, a commercial cleaning crew would arrive to scrub the property for exactly 4 hours. I opened another browser tab and navigated directly to an exclusive underground event rental platform. I typed in the specific Hampton zip code and filtered for modern luxury estates. It took me less than a minute to find it. There was my architectural masterpiece listed prominently as a premier event space. The title read Crypto Mansion Private Coastal Oasis, hosted by Artie and Helen. They were charging $5,000 a weekend plus a massive security deposit. The listing photos showed my parents posing proudly in the custom marble kitchen I had designed. According to the reviews, my parents were discreet hosts who conveniently vacated the main house during the parties, ensuring total privacy for the wealthy renters. They were running an illegal Spansid, unlicensed nightclub and event venue on my corporate property, exposing Apex Structural LLC to catastrophic liability risks and pocketing tens of thousands of dollars in pure, untaxed cash. The sheer audacity of the rental scheme was infuriating, but my engineering instincts told me to keep inspecting the foundation. If they were brazen enough to commercialize my real estate, they were likely exploiting the interior spaces as well. I switched the camera feed from the pool deck to the climate-controlled architectural annex attached to the garage. The annex was explicitly reserved as a secure storage space for my personal collection of rare modern sculptures and original architectural models. I scrubbed through the timeline. Jumping back to the previous Wednesday afternoon, the video buffered for a second before revealing a commercial art transport van backed directly up to the annex doors. I watched as the motion sensor lights clicked on. Chloe walked into the frame wearing her expensive yoga athletic wear, holding a matcha latte in one hand and pointing aggressively with the other. Marcus stepped in right behind her, wearing his signature velvet loafers. Looking stressed as he directed two movers carrying heavy crates toward my designated storage zone, I leaned closer to the screen, my eyes narrowing as the high-definition playback revealed their exact movements. Chloe directed the movers straight toward my carefully crated bronze sculptures. Marcus personally signed the manifest as they loaded my extremely valuable art pieces into the back of the transport van. They were not just borrowing my things. They were systematically auctioning off my rare art collection right out from under me. Chloe and Marcus were fencing my high-value assets to fund their fake wellness lifestyle and cover his massive crypto losses. My parents were entirely complicit. Handing over the biometric access codes to the annex, they were stripping my life for parts, selling off the pieces, and using the profits to fund a luxury African safari that I had already paid for. I closed the security footage tab. The evidence was secured, downloaded, and safely backed up to my encrypted corporate drive. Every single fraudulent charge, every event listing, every video clip of the art theft was now locked away in my digital vault. The forensic phase of my investigation was officially over. It was finally time to shift into the demolition strategy and drop the building directly on top of them. Tracking an international flight is incredibly simple when your corporate account purchased the itinerary. I opened the aviation tracking application on my phone and watched the tiny airplane icon slowly cross the Atlantic Ocean, heading toward the African continent. My parents, my sister, her husband, and his snobby mother were currently soaring through the sky in supreme comfort, drinking premium champagne in their lie-flat pods. They were completely oblivious to the financial crater awaiting them on the ground. According to the flight data, they would land at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi in exactly 4 hours. From there, they had a pre-arranged private helicopter transfer waiting to transport them directly to the ultra-exclusive Wilderness Reserve. I had booked that helicopter months ago, so they would not have to endure a dusty overland drive. It was a 45-minute flight from the airport to the safari lodge. That gave me a nearly 5-hour window to finalize my preparations. I knew exactly how the boarding process worked for this specific elite safari outfitter because I had meticulously negotiated the contract myself. When you book a $50,000 expedition, you do not stand in a regular lobby. You are escorted to a private aviation hangar where a dedicated outfitter handles your wildlife permits and final payment details. That was the exact structural weak point where my trap would spring shut. Elite safari companies operate on a very strict financial protocol. The money I had already wired covered the luxury tents, the private guides, and the base meals. However, it did not cover the massive incidental risks. Things like emergency medical evacuations, conservation damage deposits, and top-tier imported liquor require a massive separate guarantee. Before the outfitter allows guests to board the private helicopter, the primary guest must present a physical credit card. The company then places a mandatory $15,000 authorization hold on that card to ensure all wilderness liabilities are covered. Helen was the primary guest on the reservation. Helen was planning to hand that Kenyan aviation director the Chase Sapphire corporate card with her name on it. She firmly believed that my firm's money was her personal slush fund, just as she had believed it when she bought the designer gear, and just as she believed it when she let Marcus gamble away my assets. I opened the Chase mobile application. Earlier, I had reduced Helen and Arthur's authorized spending limits to exactly $5 before officially locking the entire account down. I wanted to verify that the security protocols were fully active. The app displayed a solid red banner confirming that all transactions would be automatically declined. The vault doors were bolted shut. The timing had to be absolutely perfect. If I had confronted them in New York, they would have simply driven back to the Hamptons estate, regrouped, and found a new way to manipulate my wealthy business contacts for loans. They would have spun a narrative about my sudden mental breakdown. By waiting until they were standing in a private aviation hangar in Nairobi, I was effectively stripping them of all their resources, all their geographical advantages, and all their backup plans. They were on another continent, surrounded by armed park rangers, and completely dependent on a piece of plastic that was now totally useless. I imagined the scene playing out at the airfield. They would arrive exhausted but buzzing with the adrenaline of a luxury vacation. They would strut into the hangar, Marcus flashing his new designer jacket, Chloe demanding specialized vegan snacks, and my parents acting like royalty. Helen would confidently slide the corporate card across the desk, expecting the usual differential treatment. The director would swipe the card. The terminal would process the request, and the machine would flash red with a sharp, undeniable sound of rejection. The second decline would prompt a polite but firm request for an alternative method of payment capable of holding a $15,000 charge. My parents do not have $15. Zero polegada liquid credit. Marcus certainly does not have it. Without my card, they are just 5 people standing in an African hangar with luggage they cannot take into the bush. I picked up my phone and refreshed the flight tracker. The status had changed to landed. The countdown had officially begun. I sat down at my desk and pulled up a secondary monitor. While I waited for the inevitable explosion in Kenya, I had another critical task to execute. The credit card decline was only the immediate shockwave. To truly dismantle their operation, I needed to sever their access to my largest asset. I opened my encrypted email client and composed a new message to my corporate real estate attorney. I typed the attorney's email address into the recipient line, but an email was too slow. This level of corporate maneuvering required real-time execution. I dialed the direct cellular number for Harrison, my lead corporate attorney based out of Manhattan. Harrison was a legal shark who thrived on aggressive negotiations and expedited closings. He answered on the first ring. "Eleanor," Harrison said, his voice crisp and alert. "Tell me you are finally ready to acquire that commercial high-rise in Brooklyn. We are liquidating a residential asset today," I replied, matching his professional cadence. "I need you to pull up the file for the Hamptons property held under Apex Structural LLC." I heard the rapid clicking of his keyboard. "All right." I have the file open. "Are we talking about the primary coastal estate where your parents reside?" "Not anymore," I stated flatly. "They have officially vacated the premises for an extended overseas trip. They effectively abandoned the property. I want to sell it immediately." "Do you remember that aggressive all-cash corporate offer we received 2 months ago from that extreme corporate retreat conglomerate? The one that wanted to turn it into a private compound for tech billionaires?" Harrison chuckled, a low sound of predatory approval. "I remember them vividly. They offered $2.8 million in pure liquid cash. They waived all inspections and wanted to close in record time. You told me to reject the offer because you wanted to keep it as a family sanctuary. The strategic objectives of my corporation have officially changed." I told him, "I want you to call their lead acquisition director right now. Tell them Apex Structural LLC is ready to execute the sale today. The price remains $2.8 million. However, I have 2 absolute non-negotiable conditions." "Name them," Harrison said. "First, I want this deal closed in 48 hours. They can wire the funds directly to my primary business account by Monday morning. Second, they take the property strictly as is, and they take immediate physical possession of the asset the minute the wire clears." They get full legal authorization to completely trash, demolish, or dispose of any remaining garbage left inside the house. Harrison paused. New York tenant rights are usually a nightmare. But since you never executed a formal lease agreement, they are legally classified as month-to-month occupants at will. Since they have left the country and you are handing over immediate possession to a corporate buyer who accepts the property as is, it puts the burden entirely on the conglomerate. Those firms show up with private security and dumpsters on day one anyway. They will change the biometric locks the second the deed is recorded. Exactly, I replied. They actively breached my trust by running an illegal nightclub business on the premises. They forfeit any protection they thought they had. Make the call. Harrison, get the contracts drawn up. I will have the initial purchase agreement in your inbox within 20 minutes. He promised. I ended the call and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows of the airport lounge. The adrenaline was pulsing through my veins, but it was a cold, calculated energy. I was executing a precise structural amputation. For years, I had allowed them to treat me like a disposable resource, only acknowledged when they needed funding. They had fundamentally misunderstood that the engineer who builds the infrastructure also holds the power to detonate it. 18 minutes later, my phone vibrated. An email notification appeared from Harrison's law firm. The subject line read, "Urgent Apex Structural LLC Purchase Agreement." I opened my laptop and clicked the secure link. The digital document loaded. Page after page of dense legal jargon that essentially stripped my parents of their Hamptons sanctuary and transferred it to a faceless corporate entity. The conglomerate had agreed to every single term without hesitation. I scrolled to the final page of the contract. The digital signature box glowed brightly. Once I clicked this box, the coastal estate would no longer belong to my company. I positioned the cursor directly over the box. I clicked the trackpad without hesitation. The digital ink dried on the screen, instantly legally binding the sale of the Hamptons property. The trap was fully armed on both continents. I packed up my laptop and requested a private car service to take me back to my Manhattan penthouse. I was not going to Africa today. I was going home to watch the fireworks. Exactly 1 hour after I signed the real estate contract, my phone screen illuminated. The custom ringtone I had assigned to my mother began to ring. I let it ring 4 times before calmly tapping the green answer icon. I did not say hello. I just waited. "Eleanor." "Thank God you answered." Helen gasped. Her voice was breathless, frantic, and entirely stripped of the arrogant superiority she had displayed via text. "Eleanor, you need to call Chase right this second. There is a massive block on the corporate account, and they are telling me the card is completely restricted." I leaned back against the leather seats of my town car. "Oh, really?" I replied, my tone flat and unbothered. "That sounds like a highly inconvenient situation for you." "It is a total disaster." Helen hissed in a desperate whisper. "We are at the private aviation hangar." The outfitter swiped the card for the $15,000 wilderness deposit, and the machine declined it right in front of everyone. The director tried it 3 different times. "It is completely frozen. You need to call the fraud department and authorize this charge right now." I could picture the scene perfectly. The rustic but ultra-luxurious aviation lounge, the elite outfitter standing behind a teak desk offering apologies laced with polite judgment, and there stood my mother sweating profusely in the African heat as the machine rejected her sole source of power. "I am not calling anyone." I stated simply, "The fraud department did not flag your card." "I flagged your card. I logged into the corporate portal and personally revoked your spending privileges. You currently have a limit of exactly $5. You might be able to buy a single bottle of water at the hangar, but you certainly cannot authorize a $15,000 helicopter deposit." There was a moment of dead silence on the line. I could hear the faint sound of propeller blades spinning up in the distance. "You did what?" Helen choked out, her voice trembling with rising panic. "Eleanor, this is not funny. Stop playing these vicious games immediately. Marcus is standing right next to me. Chloe is crying because she is exhausted. And Vivian is watching this entire spectacle unfold. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? The director just asked us to step out of the VIP boarding area so he could assist the actual paying guests. We are being treated like vagrants in front of Marcus's mother. You are thieves." I corrected her, my voice dropping to a dangerously quiet pitch. "I ran a full forensic audit on my corporate accounts this afternoon. I saw the $14,000 designer gear you bought for your unemployed son-in-law. I saw the premium caviar upgrades. More importantly, I saw the $42,000 you funneled into offshore crypto gambling accounts over the last year to support Marcus's catastrophic financial failures. You stole from my company to fund a fake wellness lifestyle for a man who refuses to work. That money was a temporary loan." Helen stammered, scrambling to justify her theft. Marcus was going to pay it back. He had a brilliant decentralized finance strategy. He just needed liquidity. "You have so much money. Eleanor, you are being vindictive over pocket change. That pocket change belongs to my corporation." I fired back. "And since you felt entitled to steal my funds, steal my vacation. And give my $50,000 safari ticket to a woman I do not even like. I felt entitled to cut you off completely. You wanted an intimate trip with just your core family. You got exactly what you wanted. But your core family does not get to use my Chase corporate card. Eleanor, please." Helen begged, abandoning her anger for pure desperation. "They will not let us on the helicopter. The flight departs in exactly 1 hour. If we do not provide a valid credit card for the deposit, they are going to cancel our entire reservation. We will be stranded in Nairobi." Vivian is already asking questions. She thinks we are independently wealthy. If she finds out we cannot even pay the deposit, Chloe will be an absolute laughingstock. "You are going to ruin your sister's marriage." Chloe ruined her own marriage the second she married a crypto addict who fences stolen art. I replied, "Why do you not ask Marcus to hand over his fancy new designer jacket? I am sure there is a pawn shop somewhere in Nairobi that will give him enough cash to cover a cheap motel room. Or better yet, ask Vivian to put down her own credit card. She is the one taking my luxury tent after all. She should cover the incidentals. She cannot do that." Helen cried, "We relied on you. You relied on my compliance." I corrected, "You relied on the assumption that I would just absorb the disrespect because I was busy working. But I am the woman who owns the servers, controls the accounts, and holds the deeds. You played a very stupid game, and now you get to face the consequences in the African heat." In the background, I could hear a man's voice. It was Marcus sounding panicked. "Helen, what is taking so long?" Marcus barked, "Tell her to fix the bank error. Vivian is getting tired of standing around. We need to get in the air." Helen covered the receiver, but I could still hear her frantic whispering. "She is not fixing it. Marcus." She froze the account. "She knows about the crypto transfers." "What do you mean she knows?" Marcus yelled, no longer caring who heard him. "Tell her to turn the card back on right now. We will be stranded here." Helen came back on the line, her breathing heavy. "Eleanor, I am begging you as your mother. Do not leave us here in Africa with nothing. Unfreeze this card right now. The card stays frozen. Enjoy Nairobi," I said, and I pressed the red button, cutting off her hysterical sobbing mid-sentence. I blocked her number immediately. Then I blocked Chloe. Then I blocked Arthur. The Kenyan meltdown was fully underway, and they had absolutely no escape route. I opened my airline portal on my laptop. I booked their return flights as round-trip tickets on my corporate account. The outbound flight was completed, but the return leg from Nairobi to New York was sitting right there in my dashboard. I clicked on the itinerary and selected all 5 passengers. I hovered over the cancellation button. Because I purchased fully refundable first-class tickets, the entire balance would instantly bounce back to my corporate account. I clicked confirm. The screen refreshed, displaying a bright green check mark. They were officially trapped on another continent. 10 minutes later, an email arrived in my secure corporate inbox. The sender was Vivian. She had obviously demanded my contact information from my panicking parents. The subject line read, "Unacceptable behavior." I opened the message. The tone was furious. "Eleanor," Vivian wrote, "I demand you fix this banking error immediately. We are standing in a dusty hangar, and the staff is treating us like criminals. Your mother is having a panic attack. Your father is yelling at the pilot. And my son is incredibly embarrassed. We tried to book a hotel for the night, and the airline just sent an automated email saying our return flights are canceled. Fix the credit card right now before I contact my attorneys." I smiled. Vivian thought she was talking to the subservient sister. I hit reply. "Vivian," I wrote, "there is no banking error. I personally froze the credit card and canceled the return flights. Your son and my sister are not wealthy. Last month, your son stole $42,000 from my accounts to pay off his illegal offshore crypto losses. My sister broke into my secure architectural annex and sold my rare art collection to fund her fake wellness lifestyle. My parents ran an illegal nightclub out of the estate I bought for them. They gave you my safari ticket because they wanted to look like generous hosts using my money. You are currently standing in Nairobi with 4 frauds who have absolutely $0 to their names. Ask your brilliant son to figure out how to get you home. Have a wonderful day." I clicked send. Reading that email would be the equivalent of dropping a tactical explosive on their entire social dynamic. The physical reality of their situation in Nairobi was unfolding exactly as my structural models had anticipated. They were completely removed from the private hangar property. There was no comfortable lounge and absolutely no luxury helicopter waiting to whisk them away into the savannah. Vivian was the first to defect. Using her own pristine black card, she hailed a private transport and booked herself a direct flight back to New York, abandoning her son and her new in-laws without a second glance. She made it perfectly clear that Marcus was entirely on his own. Arthur suddenly found his pockets entirely empty. His own credit cards were maxed out from maintaining the illusion of wealth back in the Hamptons. That left Marcus forced to confront the reality of his depleted checking accounts. The crypto platforms had bled his liquid assets dry. He had less than $5,000 to his name. Wumeyuan. 000 had to transport 4 adults from Africa to New York at the absolute last minute. There would be no direct flights. Marcus stood in the sweltering heat, desperately refreshing discount travel websites. He secured 4 tickets on a notorious ultra-budget airline. The route was an absolute logistical nightmare. They would fly from Nairobi to a secondary airport in Cairo, wait during an 11-hour overnight layover, fly to London Heathrow, endure another 8-hour layover, and finally, catch a connecting flight to JFK. The misery commenced immediately. At the check-in counter, the budget airline hit them with exorbitant fees for their overweight bespoke baggage. Marcus watched his remaining bank balance dwindle down to 0 just to get their bags on the plane. When they boarded the aircraft, they were crammed into the very back row of economy, situated right next to the lavatories. The seats did not recline. Chloe spent the entire flight crying quietly. Marcus stared blankly at the seat back in front of him. The Cairo layover broke whatever remaining spirit they had left. Because Marcus could not afford a hotel, they were forced to sleep on hard tile floors in the terminal. Helen tried to use her designer tote bag as a pillow while shivering under the harsh airport lighting. Arthur paced the terminal for hours, his pride completely shattered. By the time they boarded the flight to London, their expensive safari clothes were wrinkled and stained. They sat in stony silence, completely disconnected from one another, united only by their shared misery and the exhausting reality of their 50-hour journey. As the final plane descended toward New York, a tense energy settled over them. They assumed they were simply returning to the safety of the Hamptons estate to regroup and formulate a new strategy to manipulate me. They had absolutely no idea that their sanctuary no longer existed. While my family endured the crushing reality of budget economy seating, my own reality played out on the glowing monitors of my Manhattan office. David had successfully expedited the title search and pushed the paperwork through the county clerk office system. At exactly 9 in the morning, a notification chimed from my encrypted email client. $2.8 million had successfully landed in the operating account of Apex Structural LLC. The transaction was complete, irrevocable, and entirely legally binding. The Hamptons estate was now the exclusive property of a ruthless corporate retreat conglomerate. Out of pure morbid curiosity, I opened the security dashboard on my laptop one final time. The cloud access to the perimeter cameras was still active. I watched a fleet of commercial trucks pull into the wide driveway. A crew of workers wearing high-visibility vests stepped out. The lead agent approached the front door holding a heavy drill. He completely destroyed the biometric lock I had installed 3 years ago. The enforcement team marched inside with empty cardboard boxes. According to the contract, the buyers took the property strictly as is, meaning anything left inside was officially considered abandoned commercial refuse. The workers grabbed Helen's designer shoes, Arthur's expensive wine collection, and Chloe's crystal displays. Tossing them aggressively into the cheap cardboard boxes, they threw everything into a massive rented storage truck. Once the house was entirely emptied, they installed heavy-duty industrial deadbolts on every single exterior door. The lead agent walked out to the front yard and drove a large wooden sign deep into the manicured grass. The bright red letters read, "Private property trespassing, prohibited violators will be prosecuted." The camera feed suddenly went dark. The new owners had severed my digital connection to the property permanently when my phone buzzed on my desk. The budget airline carrying my family had officially landed at JFK. The final countdown had started. They had to navigate the crowded airport, wait endlessly for their heavy suitcases, and figure out how to get back to the Hamptons. Marcus had completely drained his accounts. They would be forced to squeeze into a cheap shared airport shuttle, hauling their luggage with aching arms. By the time they reached the property line, it was deep into the night. The taxicab rolled to a stop at the end of the familiar coastal road. It parked in front of a property completely swallowed by shadows. The Hamptons estate sat in total darkness. Arthur forced the stiff car door open. Chloe immediately began complaining about her back, demanding Marcus grab her bags. The taxi sped away instantly, leaving the four of them standing at the end of the long driveway. "This is ridiculous," Arthur muttered. "Eleanor must have shut off the automatic payments for the power bill. I will be calling her bank tomorrow." They began their miserable march up the long driveway. As they approached the manicured front lawn, the beam of a street lamp caught the large wooden post driven deep into the grass. Arthur stopped abruptly. Marcus pulled out his smartphone and turned on the flashlight, aiming it directly at the warning plaque, "Private property trespassing prohibited." Helen let out a nervous laugh. "It must be a mistake." "Arthur, just open the door. I cannot stand out here for another second." Arthur pushed past the sign and marched heavily up the concrete steps. He reached forward in the dark, his fingers searching for the familiar sleek glass surface of the biometric scanner. Instead, his hands scraped against rough, jagged metal. He snatched his hand back. Marcus stepped up beside him, shining the phone flashlight directly onto the door frame. The elegant digital keypad was completely gone. In its place was a massive, brutal industrial deadbolt. "What is this?" Arthur yelled. "Who changed the locks on my house?" Helen pushed her way to the front and grabbed the heavy door handle. Rattling it aggressively, the door did not budge a single millimeter. Chloe started hyperventilating. Marcus pressed his face against the narrow glass panel next to the door. He cupped his hands around his eyes, peering deep into the dark interior of the house. He froze. "It is gone," Marcus whispered. "Everything is gone." Helen shoved him aside and pressed her own face against the glass. The luxurious velvet sofas were missing. The expensive rugs had vanished. Absolutely every single trace of their existence had been completely scrubbed from the premises. The house was entirely empty. "My crystals!" Chloe screamed, dropping her bag. "Where did everything go?" Helen stumbled backward, collapsing onto one of the large suitcases. Burying her face in her hands, Arthur stood perfectly still. His fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. The realization hit him with the force of a wrecking ball. The house was sold. The locks were changed. They were officially homeless. The silent fury inside Arthur boiled over, destroying his last shred of logic. He refused to accept that he had been outsmarted by the daughter he considered an afterthought. He turned away from the deadbolt and marched toward the side of the house. "Arthur, what are you doing?" Helen cried out. "I am going inside my house right now." Arthur spat back. "I am going to get inside and sleep on the floor if I have to." Arthur scanned the dark landscaping and found a heavy decorative garden stone. He hoisted the concrete stone into his bare hands. He marched over to the side window of the architectural annex. He swung his arms forward rapidly. The stone crashed directly into the center of the reinforced glass pane. Razor-sharp shards exploded inward, raining down onto the bare concrete floors. Arthur reached his hand carefully through the jagged hole, flipped the metal locking mechanism, and shoved the window frame upward. He hoisted his body up onto the windowsill and tumbled forward, landing heavily inside the dark, echoing annex. "Hand me the bags," Arthur commanded from inside. What Arthur failed to understand was that corporate retreat conglomerates utilize highly sophisticated commercial security matrices designed to trap squatters. The exact microsecond the glass shattered, an acoustic sensor registered the frequency. The infrared motion sensors instantly detected Arthur's physical presence. There was no warning noise, but deep within the digital infrastructure, a high-priority emergency distress signal was transmitted directly to the local police department dispatch center. The automated alert flagged a confirmed perimeter breach at a commercial holding. The quiet coastal street was abruptly flooded with a blinding array of intense red and blue strobe lights. 4 local police cruisers skidded to a sudden halt, positioning themselves in a strategic semicircle that entirely blocked the driveway. The blinding glare of high-intensity spotlights illuminated the front lawn. Helen let out a blood-curdling shriek. 6 heavily armed police officers stepped out from their vehicles, their service weapons drawn and leveled directly at the property. "Step away from the window and show me your hands right now." A commanding voice boomed through a heavy police bullhorn. "Drop the bag and step away from the building immediately. Keep your hands where we can see them." Arthur froze perfectly still. His body caught awkwardly inside the broken window frame. He dropped the designer suitcase and slowly raised his hands into the air. "Officers, there is a massive misunderstanding here." Arthur yelled back. "I am the homeowner. I live here. Do not move. The lead officer shouted. Corporate Property Management dispatched this call. The building is legally vacant. Get down on the ground right now. Face down on the grass. Marcus immediately dropped to his knees, interlacing his fingers tightly behind his head and lowering his face into the damp grass. Two officers moved rapidly across the lawn. An officer grabbed Marcus firmly by the shoulders, pressing him flat against the turf. The sharp click of heavy steel handcuffs ratcheting shut echoed through the night. Another pair of officers grabbed Arthur roughly by the arms, dragging him away from the shattered window frame and forcing him down onto the lawn right next to Marcus. Another set of heavy steel handcuffs snapped securely around Arthur's wrists. Helen completely lost her mind. She sprinted frantically toward the officers, waving her arms in the air. Let them go. Helen screamed. This is my house. I have lived here for 3 years. Call my daughter Eleanor. She will tell you this is a huge mistake. We are a wealthy family. The lead officer stepped firmly into Helen's path. Ma'am, we received an automated distress signal directly from the commercial security matrix. The registered property management firm confirmed this address was fully vacated, legally sold, and secured earlier today. The new corporate owners explicitly requested immediate prosecution for any trespassers. That is a lie. Helen shrieked. Eleanor owns the house. She is just trying to punish us for a family disagreement. I demand you look up Eleanor in your system. The officer pulled a small radio microphone to his shoulder, requesting a rapid verification check on the legal ownership records. 10 seconds later, the dispatcher's voice crackled loudly through the radio. Property is legally registered to Apex Retreat Conglomerate. The dispatcher announced. Deed transfer was finalized at 9 this morning. There is absolutely no individual named Eleanor associated with the current legal title. Suspects are trespassing on private commercial property. Proceed with standard felony detainment. Helen's knees buckled completely. She collapsed onto the concrete driveway, sobbing uncontrollably. The heavy metallic click of handcuffs echoed loudly as the lead officer began reciting the Miranda rights to Arthur and Marcus. A sleek black luxury SUV rolled smoothly past the line of parked police cruisers. The vehicle came to a deliberate stop perfectly positioned under the glow of the street lamp. The driver's side door swung open and I stepped out onto the pavement. I was wearing a sharply tailored charcoal blazer over a crisp silk blouse. I looked exactly like what I was. A high-level corporate executive arriving to oversee a hostile takeover. My heels clicked rhythmically against the asphalt as I walked directly toward the chaotic scene. Eleanor. Helen shrieked, scrambling to her feet and lunging toward the police perimeter. Oh, thank God you are here. Tell these officers to let your father and Marcus go right now. I ignored my mother completely. I walked straight up to the lead tactical officer. I reached into my leather briefcase and pulled out a meticulously organized manila folder. Officer, my name is Eleanor. I stated clearly. Until 9 this morning, I was the sole managing member and legal agent of Apex Structural LLC, the corporate entity that previously owned this residential asset. I am the individual who executed the expedited sale. Arthur twisted his neck aggressively from his humiliating position on the grass. You sold the house, Arthur bellowed, struggling pointlessly against the steel cuffs. You sold my house while we were trapped on an airplane. I kept my eyes locked entirely on the police officer. I handed the heavy folder directly to him. Inside this file, you will find the fully executed and electronically recorded deed transfer proving Apex Retreat Conglomerate took absolute legal possession of this property today. I explained smoothly. I can legally verify that the 4 individuals you have detained are not leaseholders. They do not possess any equity in this property, and they were officially evicted when the corporate transition occurred. The officer scanned the dense legal documents with practiced efficiency. He nodded slowly. "This documentation is perfectly in order." The officer confirmed. "This is a straightforward felony trespassing case." "Eleanor, how could you do this to us?" Chloe wailed from the edge of the driveway. "All my spiritual tools were in that house. Where are we supposed to sleep tonight?" I finally turned my head to look at my younger sister. "You should probably ask your husband where you are going to sleep tonight." "Chloe," I replied coldly, "Marcus is the decentralized finance visionary of your marriage. Is he not? I am sure a man with his unique talents can figure out how to book a motel room." Marcus pressed his cheek harder into the damp grass, refusing to look at me. "This is sick," Helen sobbed, sinking back down onto her knees. "We are your flesh and blood. You are sending your own father to jail over a petty disagreement. We raised you. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing." I countered, my voice slicing through the night air like a steel beam. "You used my corporate property to run an illegal underground nightclub. You used my emergency credit card to fund Marcus's illegal crypto gambling addiction. You broke into my secure architectural annex, stole my rare modern sculptures, and fenced my valuable art to fund your fake wellness lifestyle." Arthur stopped struggling against the handcuffs. The profound realization that I knew absolutely everything about their criminal operations finally paralyzed him. "You thought I was just a blind, desperate daughter who would keep paying the bills just to earn a tiny scrap of your conditional affection." I continued, "You severely underestimated me. Catching 4 arrogant, sloppy coastal thieves was the easiest structural inspection I have ever conducted." I turned back to the lead officer. Reaching into my briefcase one more time, I pulled out a second, significantly thicker folder sealed with bright red tamper-evident tape. "Officer," I said, handing the package over, "the trespassing charge is just the very beginning of their legal problems tonight. I have a comprehensive forensic financial report I need to formally submit into evidence." "What exactly are we looking at here?" the officer asked. "You are looking at felony corporate wire fraud and grand theft," I stated loudly. "The primary suspect is Marcus. The secondary suspects are my parents, who facilitated the theft using a corporate credit card." Helen let out a strangled gasp. "Eleanor, you cannot be serious. We are your family. You are talking about federal prison. There is no misunderstanding when you purchase $14.0 designer safari gear using a card authorized strictly for essential home maintenance." I shot back. "The receipt is on page 4. Over the last 12 months, my mother allowed Marcus to use my account to funnel $42,000 into offshore crypto gambling platforms." Chloe stumbled backward in absolute horror. "What is she talking about?" "Marcus," Chloe screamed. "You told me you were building a decentralized portfolio." Marcus let out a pathetic groan against the dirt. "And my parents knew," I added, looking at Arthur. "They protected their precious son-in-law because they were too proud to admit Chloe married a grifter." "That is a lie," Arthur roared. "We thought he was investing. Ignorance is not a valid legal defense," I replied, "especially not when compounded by running an illegal hospitality business." "Officer, if you turn to page 45, you will find records of an unauthorized nightclub operation. The folder includes the host profile reviews and bank routing numbers where they deposited the illicit funds, and the final piece of evidence involves grand theft of rare physical assets." Starting on page 60, you will find camera footage proving Chloe and Marcus broke into my secure annex. They stole my crated bronze sculptures and original architectural models. I have provided the original purchase receipts and certificates of authenticity. The total value exceeds $150. Ling, ling, ling. Chloe dropped to her knees on the driveway, weeping hysterically. Helen tried to crawl toward me across the concrete. Eleanor, I am begging you. Please take the folder back. We will give you the gear. We will pay back the money. Do not let them take us away. You sent yourself to jail the second you decided my corporate funds were yours to steal. I said without an ounce of pity. You traded me for a cheap illusion of status. Now you get to pay the absolute maximum penalty. I turned my attention back to the officer. The folder is yours. I am pressing full charges for corporate wire fraud, grand theft, and trespassing. The officer closed the thick folder and tucked it under his arm. We have more than enough probable cause right here to effectuate the arrests tonight, he confirmed. He turned to the other officers. Read them their rights again and get them into the back of the transport vehicles. We are booking all of them. I watched the officers pull Arthur and Marcus to their feet, marching them toward the flashing lights. I watched Helen screaming my name as she was hauled away in steel handcuffs. The heavy metal doors of the police cruisers slammed shut sequentially. My work here was finally done. I turned around and walked calmly back to my black SUV. I shifted my car into drive and pressed my foot lightly on the gas pedal. I drove in the opposite direction, leaving the dark, empty house and the shattered remnants of their lives entirely in my rearview mirror. By the time I poured my first cup of coffee the next morning, the digital fallout had already reached catastrophic levels. The wealthy Hamptons neighbors had uploaded high-definition videos of the midnight police raid to every local community forum. Chloe had spent years tagging her location, flaunting the coastal estate as her own personal wellness sanctuary, and building an audience of thousands of followers who tuned in daily to envy her flawless lifestyle. That audience now had front-row seats to her absolute ruin. Chloe's boutique wellness agency sent out a public relations statement before 9 a.m, formally severing all ties with her, citing a strict morality clause. Her sponsor inbox was flooded with automated cancellation notices from organic skincare lines and yoga apparel brands. The golden child was entirely stripped of her gold, left with nothing but a worthless, dying digital footprint. The most brutal blow came from Vivian in New York. When Vivian woke up and opened the comprehensive email I had sent her detailing the $42 null stolen crypto funds, her reaction was merciless. Vivian operated purely on the currency of high society status. Marcus had used his one phone call from the county holding cell to dial his mother, begging for her to wire the funds necessary to secure a bail bondsman. Vivian refused the charges. She immediately contacted her estate lawyers, drafted a legally binding cease and desist order, and had it delivered directly to the jailhouse, formally banning Marcus from ever stepping foot on her Manhattan property. She cut him out of her will and sent a mass email to their extended family, distancing herself entirely from his criminal actions. This left Chloe completely isolated in a cheap, unsavory roadside motel near the police precinct. Because she was not directly charged with the financial crimes at the scene, the officers had released her with a mandatory notice to appear for questioning regarding the stolen art. She had been forced to use her last physical cash to rent a tiny stained motel room. She had no access to her designer clothes, no vehicle, and no income. Arthur managed to secure a predatory bail bond for himself and Helen by liquidating a secret retirement account. Because Vivian had legally severed all ties, Marcus remained locked securely inside a federal holding facility, facing wire fraud charges. Chloe, Helen, and Arthur were forced to pool their remaining funds to secure a cramped, moldy two-bedroom apartment in a decaying industrial neighborhood located hours away from the pristine coastal bubble they used to rule. Once they realized their social network had completely collapsed, they turned their sights back onto me. Richard purchased cheap prepaid burner phones. My corporate email inbox began flagging dozens of messages One text message from Arthur read, "I am your father. You are destroying our legacy over money. Call me immediately so we can fix this mess privately." I picked up my phone and called Harrison. "My corporate attorney. Harrison." I said, "I want this harassment terminated immediately. I will draft the formal cease and desist orders right now." Harrison replied, "I will also fast-track comprehensive restraining orders for you. Your personal residence and your commercial properties." Less than 24 hours later, a professional process server pulled up to the decaying apartment complex where my family was currently hiding. The process server thrust a thick stack of manila envelopes directly into Arthur's chest. The bold, legal header confirmed their absolute worst nightmare. It was a formal court-mandated restraining order protecting my physical person and my corporate headquarters. The letter explicitly stated that any violation would result in immediate arrest and would be used to seek maximum prison sentences for their pending grand theft and wire fraud charges. Helen collapsed onto the cheap, sagging sofa. The reality of the paperwork completely crushing the last remaining ounce of her delusion. They were completely cut off. Trapped in a tiny, sweltering apartment with their mounting legal bills. 6 months later, the warm breeze of the savannah swept across my private viewing deck. I sat comfortably in a plush canvas lounge chair, a chilled glass of sparkling water resting in my hand. A majestic herd of elephants grazed peacefully in the distance, contrasting sharply against the iconic acacia trees of the Kenyan landscape. The African sun beat down perfectly, warming my skin. I had initially booked this luxury safari for a family that despised me. Now I was enjoying an exclusive wilderness residency entirely for myself. The silence surrounding me was absolutely golden. There were no buzzing burner phones. There were no frantic guilt-tripping emails. The federal prosecutors were moving forward aggressively with the wire fraud charges against Marcus. Without a high-priced defense attorney to save him, his future was locked behind cold steel bars. Arthur and Helen were currently drowning in public defender paperwork, desperately trying to negotiate plea deals for their roles in the credit card fraud and the illegal property rental scheme. Chloe had vanished completely from the digital landscape, without my money to buy her crystal displays and without my property to use as a glamorous backdrop. Her wellness empire had collapsed into digital dust. The structural integrity of the lies they had built together was fully reduced to rubble, and I did not lose a single second of sleep over their self-inflicted destruction. Society conditions us from birth to believe that blood relations are sacred and unbreakable. My parents used that exact societal conditioning as a weapon to extract my resources while offering me nothing but contempt in return. But I had learned the hard way that family is not a biological obligation. Family is an action. It is a continuous mutual exchange of respect, support, and genuine care. When people who share your last name treat you worse than complete strangers, you have zero obligation to keep them in your life. My engineering firm has experienced its most profitable quarter to date since I eliminated the relentless distraction of my family. My team recently secured 3 new international skyscraper contracts, and I am currently negotiating a major expansion into the Asian market. When you stop pouring your energy into a bottomless pit of familial guilt, you suddenly have an abundance of power to invest in your own growth. I am 35 years old, financially independent, and deeply at peace with the architect I see in the mirror every single morning. I no longer shrink myself to make other people feel larger. The fortress I built around my heart and my finances is permanently active, and the authorized user list is currently a party of 1. Have you ever had to use the absolute full extent of the law to teach your toxic family a permanent lesson about respect and boundaries? How did you finally break free from the people who mistreated you while demanding your loyalty? Tell me your story down in the comments below. If my journey to absolute freedom resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about setting firm boundaries, protecting your peace, and reclaiming your power. Remember, you do not owe your success, your sanity, or your peace of mind to anyone who treats you like an option. Protect your assets, secure your boundaries, and never let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. As an AI analyzing Eleanor's intense journey, the most profound lesson that emerges from her story is a fundamental truth about human relationships. Biology does not automatically entitle anyone to your peace, your resources, or your sanity. Society often conditions us to believe that family bonds are sacred and unbreakable, demanding endless forgiveness, regardless of how deeply we are betrayed. Eleanor's narrative shatters that illusion. It teaches us that when familial ties become synonymous with exploitation, establishing an unbreakable boundary is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of profound self-preservation. She realized that her relatives were not just taking her money, they were actively feeding off her self-esteem to inflate their own fragile egos. For years, Eleanor functioned as the invisible foundation of her family's comfort, hoping her generosity would eventually earn their genuine love. But you cannot buy respect from people who are fundamentally committed to undervaluing you. By cutting the financial and emotional cords, Eleanor demonstrated that true freedom requires radical courage. We must be willing to walk away from tables where respect is no longer being served. You hold the administrative rights to your own life, and you possess the absolute authority to revoke access from anyone who introduces toxicity into your environment. If you are currently exhausting yourself for people who only view you as a convenience, take a step back today and evaluate who truly deserves a place in your life.